The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
Answer Legal has been absolutely beneficial to my practice. Not only do they answer the phone 24 hours a day with a live receptionist, they qualify prospective clients that are calling in to get information, providing the benefits of a dedicated receptionist at a fraction of the cost, as well as reinforces our commitment to responsiveness and care. We've been using Answering Legal for a few years now, and I highly recommend Answering Legal to any large size or even small boutique law firm such as mine.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Earley Show, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. I am your host, Chris Earley, a personal injury attorney entrepreneur in Boston. And as always, we always bring you the very, very best guests. And I'm really excited to geek out today because we have a really successful, humble, driven, and dynamic guy. Cameron Herold is on the show today. I've read a lot of his stuff. I've studied his stuff, and he's built businesses as we are all trying to do ourselves with our law firm. So I'm really excited to talk with Cameron, learn a lot. As always, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you sharpen those pencils. I'm sure we'll have plenty of writer downers. So Cameron, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Good, Chris. Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate this.
I appreciate you. So I was first introduced to you. You were virtually a speaker at PILMA a few years ago. Ken Hardison, I think, brought you on to speak virtually. And that was where I sort of, started seeing your name. And then it's one of those things where you start seeing your name. It's everywhere then, right? I read Vivid Vision. And so I'm really excited to talk about your lessons learned starting out. Obviously, it's been a long journey. Could you sort of take us back growing up? What were some influences, mom and dad? What did they do? How did they, what did they imprint on you?
Yeah, I'm going to go there in a second. I want to do something that I will forget if I don't do it right away. And I don't think I've ever even mentioned this, but one of the biggest problems for lawyers, for doctors, for dentists, for chiropractors, for accountants, for engineers, for people that are professionals that then get all that education and even all the practical, and then they go off and open up their own firm or their own business, is they never get trained on how to run a business. You go 7 years of law school or whatever it is, and then your undergrad and then your law school, but then you walk out and you maybe had like 2 hours of how to hire people, train people, some marketing, and go ahead, that's almost malpractice. It's right. Really almost malpractice to send lawyers off because you spend all your time stressed out trying to manage something you have no experience at. I was the exact opposite. I had all of this business training, business grooming, ran a business while I was in university, but guess what my undergraduate degree major was? Law.
Oh, okay.
So I have a bachelor's degree with a law major in Canada. So I did private law, public law, corporate law, international import, export, banking, port, criminal, employment law, like all banking. I did all kinds of contract law twice. I did all kinds of great law courses. So I had enough law concepts and experience to understand law, but I got trained on how to run a company, which you guys never got. And I think it's been really a big disservice. And I've done a lot of work for law firms, for dental chains. And it's really, I really feel bad for you guys because you take some of the smartest people on the planet and then you set them up for failure, which has got to be super frustrating.
No, so I'm with you, man.
My background, I was groomed to be an entrepreneur. My dad ran his own company. Both sets of grandparents ran their own businesses. So I grew up in this entrepreneurial family where we were taught to actually be entrepreneurs. In fact, when I was very young, and even through really most of university, I wanted to be a lawyer. And well, that's not entirely true. I kept being told to be a lawyer because I had all of the traits that would make a very successful lawyer or a law firm owner, but I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I kind of had that weird background. I ran lots of little businesses as a kid. I had 12 full-time employees when I was 20 years old. I ran my own operational company for my last 3 years of university, but that was really my story. And I was probably best trained to be an entrepreneur in a group that you would be well known out of Massachusetts called College Pro Painters.
Yeah.
And College Pro went on to become the largest residential house company or house painting company on the planet. The head office was in Toronto, Canada. The US head office was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I worked as a franchisee with them for 3 years. And then I opened the West Coast of the United States for them and was in charge of recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and training franchisees. So I was coaching entrepreneurs back in the late 80s, early 90s, before business coaching had even been the thing. So that's really where my background started. I ended up getting to be a co-owner of or minority owner of a small franchising group of an auto body chain, which went on to become Gerber Auto Collision. It's now the largest collision repair chain in the world. Then I was hired as the president of a private currency company. We built that company up and sold it to a US public company. And then I joined my best friend. I'd been a part of a mastermind community called the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, or YEO. And I joined someone in my forum who was building a company called the Rubbish Boys. He was just changing the name over to 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I helped him recruit his first franchisee away from College Pro Painters. And then I joined Brian as his COO, and we took the company from 2 million to 106 million in revenue over 6 years. And then I exited that company 18 years ago, and I've been working behind the scenes with CEOs and COOs, doing speaking events in 29 countries, and I've written 6 books. So that's kind of my quick bio.
That's all you've done? Oh, geez, how boring. So, all right, I appreciate that. So, all right, sounds like, you grew up around entrepreneurs, so that was the momentum that was behind you. Some people grow up in entrepreneurial families, they don't end up being entrepreneurs, but you were sort of incubated, if you will, right?
Yeah, and again, it's very different to grow up in an entrepreneurial family versus growing up in a business background. A lot of the people in the college system wanted to go off and do their MBA. I wasn't smart enough to get into an MBA school. I struggled in school. I was very distracted in school. I have 17 of the 18 signs of attention deficit disorder. In fact, my ex-wife said if I was paying attention during the clinical testing, it would have been 18 for 18. I'm on the spectrum for bipolar disorder. I have 11 of the 11 traits of bipolar. So I really struggled with this classical school system. But being an entrepreneur, it was about some of that street smarts and some of the hustle and some of the sales skills and leadership skills and problem solving skills and spotting opportunity versus the classic models and spreadsheets and case studies that you'd get in a classic MBA program.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, and I'm sure the majority of this audience, because it's all about emotional intelligence, hustle, grind, mindset. We'll get into mindset. I really want to talk about mindset a little bit later, but you have to have these intangibles. It's not, you could go to Harvard Law School, crush it, be a genius intellect, and fall flat in business because the real world doesn't reward academic achievement. I'm sure you see that all around you, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this earlier this year. My wife had a 4.3 or a 4.4 GPA, and I didn't know you could do that. I thought perfect was 4. I didn't know you could get better than perfect. It blew my mind. So she's explaining how she got like an advanced placement and all this stuff. I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. That's how dumb I was. But what she struggles with is because she was so smart and so perfect in school that when she encounters failure, it really beats her up because she's not used to failure. Whereas my academic career was failing everything, right? So if I started in kindergarten until the end of 4th year university, I was used to getting 62% on an exam. I was used to getting D- and C+. I got 1A on a law course on suicide and euthanasia, like something I'll never do. I was just fascinated with it. And I got like 1A in my entire career. So I'm used to failure. And as an entrepreneur, failure is something that hits us every single day. But if you're not used to it and it beats you up emotionally or it scares you or scars you, you're just not going to be that successful. So I think many entrepreneurs, and this is different from the hired gun CEO. The traditional hired gun CEO coming out of an MBA to run a 5,000 person company is very different from that person who is going to bootstrap, build it, scale it, and get it to that medium enterprise. It's kind of the good to great people are very different from the great to world-class people.
I love the failure discussion, because like that's the key. And as you grow, as you know, you break barriers. You're challenged. You're sometimes, for a lot of us, I can speak to this, right? Imposter syndrome. Do I belong in this realm? Well, that tells me that we're in the right spot. If we're feeling like, do I belong here? Then you keep pushing. Let me ask you this. What do you think, failure breeds success? The more you fail, the more you succeed. And was there one particular moment of failure that stands out?
I think failure can breed success. I just don't think that people should seek failure. This is something that I vehemently disagree with, people going like, failure is good. No. If you can actually have a mentor or a coach or a mastermind community that can prevent you from having those failures first, that's better than needing to learn from failure. Like, I broke my legs and arms many times ski racing. I didn't need that lesson. Right? That was a really painful lesson. So let me speak to a failure that I had. Wow, really early. Yeah, really early on failure. Well, we almost bankrupted 1-800-GOT-JUNK. This is probably a good story. We were approaching 100 million in system-wide sales. We had 248 people at the head office, almost 3,000 system-wide. And we were running out of cash. We didn't realize that we had just spent $5 million on bonuses, taxes, an office renovation, a move, like all this stuff that we drained cash out of the business. We're like, whatever, we'll just go to the bank and get a credit line. Yeah. We've been very profitable, 100% revenue growth, 6 years in a row. Number 2 company in Canada to work for. We were just on Oprah. Harvard had just written a case study about us. And the bank's like, yeah, we can't loan to you. We're like, why not? And they're like, well, you just spent all your money. We're like, we know. We thought we were really proud of it, that we didn't need any bank facilities. Mm-hmm. They realized that we didn't know how to leverage the balance sheet and didn't know how to run a $100 million business. And the big lesson that I got was our head of finance had been trying to tell Brian and I to slow down, be more cautious. Are you sure you're not opening too many locations too quickly? Are you sure we're not expanding too quickly? Are you sure that we shouldn't go and get all these bank facilities? And we're like, no, we got this. We got this. The big lesson we got was, if you're not willing to listen to the people that work with you, hire people that you're willing to listen to, right? Or slow down and listen to them.
Nice. Yeah.
And it's like God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to use them in that ratio a little bit more. The problem was our head of finance was very quiet and very amiable. And Brian and I were these drivers that were really pushing. Yeah. So it was a big lesson, was to hire people you're willing to listen to, or listen to the people you've got.
Right. It must have been humbling, because you're having such rapid growth and you sort of had this punch in the gut.
The humbling was having to go out and fire 20 people and having to call all of our suppliers and say we weren't going to be able to pay them, and having to slow down our growth. The humbling part was having to turn to the team and say we'd made mistakes.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
That was humbling.
100%. Why was 1-800-GOT-JUNK? I'm sure there are a million reasons. Why was it so successful? Why did it just take off?
It takes a long time to get to the night before you become that overnight success story, right? So I'll give you the 3 things that I came in and did with the organization in the first year that really propelled the growth. The first one was, I came in with Brian and I said, no one's making money. You're not making money. The franchisees aren't making money. The guys in the trucks aren't making money. We're paying the call center minimum wage. This whole model kind of sucks. So we're going to need to increase our prices. And we raised our prices by 40% across the board in a single week. Every one of the 12 locations raised their prices by 40%. People thought I was crazy. Franchisees said, we're going to go bankrupt. I was like, we're going to go bankrupt anyway. So we're either going to go bankrupt trying to be profitable, or we're going to go bankrupt because we're losing money. So we did it. And there was some things that we did behind the scenes to make it work. And it was very successful. That was number 1. We positioned ourselves as the Starbucks of junk removal, or the FedEx of junk removal, right? More of the premium price, premium service, premium brand, and we could afford to do it because we were charging. Number 2 was, I said, if we're going to have this great growth, we have to attract people. We have to attract customers, attract suppliers, attract franchisees, and attract great employees. And to do that, we have to be a little bit more than a business and a little bit less than a religion. We have to get into this zone of a cult. We have to build a company culture that is so magnetic that we pull people towards us. So we created a cult-like work environment, and there's systems that we can put in place to do that. I used to actually study cults, and I understood how to build that cult-like environment. So that was number 2. And then number 3 was, we had no money for marketing, but we understood how to go to the press and get the media to talk about us, whether it was newspaper, magazines, bloggers, radio, TV, Oprah. So we put systems in place to phone the media and tell them about the future or the vivid vision of our organization and get them to write about us. And that was something that I had been very successful at with all the companies I'd built. And Brian had had some early success with the Rubbish Boys. So it was those three things became kind of the flywheel effect. And then I guess lastly, it was obsessing about our franchisees' profitability. I knew that the only way we could truly scale, and I learned this at Gerber Auto Collision and at College Pro Painters, if the franchisees are wickedly profitable, they'll validate well, they'll buy more locations, they'll tell their friends to buy locations, it'll be fun energy to work with, they'll validate with the press. But if they're not making money, it just gets harder across the board. So we ensured that we focused on helping them make really good money. And that just kind of propelled the whole flywheel of growth.
I love it. Just unpacking that for a second. So the first one, you raise your prices. So I'm always encouraging attorneys, raise your prices. The market will bear it. You don't want to be a commodity. You're not removing junk. You're a premium service that happens to be the business of, we remove your junk, but like we're really good at it. You're going to pay us more because we're that good. It's position, totally. It's perception, and that's really crucial. I love the cult-like atmosphere, right? I'm obsessed with culture. I think business leaders need to be obsessed with culture. And it sounds like you had fanatics, like culture lunatics, I say it favorably, who were all in, like drinking.
We had an employee in the first couple of years and a franchisee in the first 15 franchisees both get permanent full-color tattoos of our company logo on their body. Nick Wood got one on his hip and Jesse Corzan got one on his shoulder. That's unheard of for companies to get logos tattooed on their body, right? People. So that was a cult-like, frenetic, but we worked at that. In fact, I was actually interviewed on a podcast 3 years ago that's called A Little Bit Culty. And I was interviewed as a business expert who understand cults and understand how to take the best principles and build that company culture without going too far. Right? Where does company culture go too far?
Right.
And sometimes cultures are torn apart by the mass media because it just seems so weird. But the problem is it's because average really sucks. If you're going to compare, like WeWork was an incredible company culture, torn apart by the media because it was so culty, but you're going to compare it to working for the government or working for a school system or working for a boring architectural firm. That's just shit. Culture is not bad. It's just that people aren't used to it.
So I'm sure it was a million factors, but what was your focus to build the culture? What did you do right that built the culture so tightly?
Yeah, I'll go off the top of my head with a bunch of things. The first is a set of company core values that you not just have posted, but you live on. You are willing to fire people if they break the core values. People understand the core values. You hire people based on the core values. You know, College Pro's core values, where I learned this, and I left College Pro 40 years ago, was deliver what you promise, respect the individual, pride in all you do, and find a better way. If I can recite the company core values from 40 years ago, those were deeply ingrained core values in the company.
Right.
The core values, alignment with a vivid vision, right? Having that 3 or 4 page description of what your company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future. So everyone is hell yeah, it's a full body F yes, I want to help build this. They're aligned and inspired. That's number 2. Number 3 is a BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal, that 20 or 30 year stretch that you're marching towards. So at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, ours was to build a globally admired brand. That was the test for everything we were doing. Will this make us a globally admired brand? If it was a no, then we figured out how to make it a yes. And then it was hiring really great culture people and getting rid of any of the toxic, negative, underperforming people. Because A players want to hang out with A players. It's why, you know, the Boston Bruins hockey team can score goals when they're shorthanded, is because they put the best 4 on the ice and they don't have that 5th person in the way, right? It's why underperformers will rally with each other. It's interesting. I was actually in Dubai in January speaking to a group of 2,500 entrepreneurs at a big conference. After the event, I was out talking to this guy, and I'm 6'4". This guy was 6'6". And I'm talking to him. I'm like, what do you do for fun? He goes, volleyball. I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. He goes, yeah, I play professional beach volleyball. I'm like, amazing. I said, I played volleyball in college, just kind of intramural. I said, I have a question for you. You and your professional beach partner, if I took 5 of my friends from college and it was the 6 of us against the 2 of you in beach, and he starts laughing, he goes, every time. I'm like, I haven't even finished the question. He goes, Cameron, we would beat you every single game. The 2 of us would slaughter the 6 of you. And that's like taking two people and paying them $200,000 a year each. That's $400,000 total salary. Or six people at $100,000 each. That's 600. The two A players would destroy the six Bs or six C players.
Yeah.
You have to bring that culture and that attitude of almost Cirque du Soleil into your company. You don't build a family, because some families are very dysfunctional. Sports teams only go so far, but that Cirque du Soleil culture where we have each other's backs, we're driving for professionalism, we only need the critical few people that are performing at the highest level, that creates that cult-like environment. Creating a corporate environment where you care about people. We flipped the org chart upside down, where we were there to support people and help them with their skills, their confidence, and their connections, and not manage them and hold them accountable. Fortune magazine asked me in 2003, how do you hold your employees accountable? And I said, I don't. I hire accountable people. So that's kind of culture. And then I guess the last one would be creating these systems internally that are like mantras and sayings that from the outside, people don't really understand, but from the inside, it kind of becomes part of your vernacular. Mm-hmm. So who's doing what by when? Plan, brief, execute, debrief. What are your top five? Having a sign up on the wall that had the words, no problem, with a big X through them. People were walking in going, what's all this mean? But from inside, we knew it was part of our secret sauce. It was part of the 1-800-GOT-JUNK way. So it's those kinds of things to build that really strong culture.
A lot of this is attracting people off the street who are picking up your vibe, right? Because there's only so many people aligned with what you just described in the general population. Correct. So how would you guys go about bringing them on, finding them?
Yeah, so we cast a very wide net with recruiting. We try to bring as many candidates together as we can as possible. And then we don't read any of their resumes. We instantly reply back and we say, thanks for your resume. We're not going to read it yet. Mm-hmm. Please read the vivid vision of what our company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future. And read this recent article of us in the media. If this sounds like the kind of company that you want to help fly to the moon, reply now with group interview in the subject line and a 2 to 3 minute video of how you can help us make our vivid vision come true. If we like your video, we'll read your resume and bring you in for a group interview. So right away, we only want the people that read our vivid vision and go, I want in.
Yeah.
If they're not obsessed with that, if they don't want to take the time to do a 2 to 3 minute video, we're not going to waste our time on reading a resume because they're just not that in. So that takes the big wide net and it casts it back. Steve Jobs used to say he would show the wooden prototype of the Mac back in the late 80s, early 90s to these engineers. And he said, if he didn't see the twinkle in their eyes, if he didn't see them vibrating in their seats, he didn't care if they had the skills. He only wanted those monomaniacs who were excited with the vision and they had the skills to make it come true.
That's so cool, man. True believers.
Yeah.
You know, they just raise both hands. I'm in.
I'm in. Right?
Yeah.
We actually had a guy one day standing outside of our office in Vancouver wearing a sandwich board and a blue wig, which was part of our marketing. And the sandwich board said, please interview me.
Oh.
Crazy.
It's wild.
That just doesn't happen, right? But we worked really
like tattoos.
hard.
Doesn't happen.
We got the media to write about us. We got the media to talk about us. At one point, we ranked as the #1 company in Western Canada to work for 2 years in a row. And then the year before I left the company, we were the #2 company in all of Canada to work for. So we were this cultural phenom. In Vancouver, there were only 3 companies you wanted to work for. 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Lululemon that was based here and kind of scaling at the same time as we were. Mm-hmm. And then the Vancouver Olympics that started the push here in about 2005, 2006 for the 2010 Olympics. Everyone wanted in those 3 organizations. So when there's, that's the culture by design.
I love it. I love that. So let me ask you, so you mentioned earlier media attention. You guys were savvy with getting media attention. Mm-hmm. How can an attorney get media attention? Because that's a win-win, right? Getting your name out there. How would you go about that?
Let's say you're in the personal injury law space. Yeah. And I've coached, William Matar from Rochester and Buffalo, George Sink from South Carolina, John Barry, Jason Hennessy and Scott Schrum from Hennessy Digital, Chad Dudley, Arnie Malum, who used to run CJ Advertising. I've coached a number of law firms that are in this space. No one's going to cover you because, here's a good law firm that does personal injury law. That doesn't sell. Nobody cares.
Right.
However, here's 5 stories that every firm can get the media to cover them on. The first one is what I call the Genesis story. It's how you started. It's why you started. It's why you started a law firm instead of going to work for a law firm. It's what kind of gave you the impetus to go after the kind of law that you're in to solve the problems that you have. You tell that story and it inspires and it educates, and there's no time sensitivity on the story. So you can run it today or you can run it in 3 weeks. It's a good filler story that any business journalist will actually write in your market. Number 2 is the hero's journey, right? It's that lessons from the edge. It's the trials and tribulations. It's where you struggled and fell and almost went bankrupt. You almost lost your marriage. You almost screwed up whatever it was, but you overcame, you learned. So it's the lessons. It's the lessons from the edge. Those again inspire and they educate. And the fact that you're a personal injury law firm is in the story, but it's not about that. So the story becomes very powerful and educational and can be used in your sales and marketing later. Number 3 is to get stories about your customers. It's how your customer's life got changed because of the work that you did. And if you're a national firm, like let's say that you're a marketing agency that has clients in 50 states, you can get a story about how your agency changed Bob's life in Chicago. It's the same story about Kelly's life in Boston and Dave's story in Dallas. So it's the same story, different city, or the same story, different media outlets, right? When we were scaling 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we landed 5,200 individual unique stories about our company and franchisees in 6 years, prior to social media even existing. So we didn't even have Facebook or LinkedIn to share them, but all those uniques was what propelled us. The 4th story angle that you have is around culture. Now, what's beautiful about law firms is everybody hates them, right?
Yeah.
The mass market, it's like, oh my God, you're a lawyer. Oh my God, you're an insurance company. Oh my God, you're an accountant. I don't want to hear about your law firm. But what about the law firm? What about the law firm that's cool? What about the law firm that's fun? So I remember a really close friend of mine, a former college pro franchisee, a former fraternity brother of mine in Canada, decided to start a law firm in Toronto, Canada. Now, because he also had his MBA from Notre Dame and his LLB from Ottawa U, he went out and negotiated some killer, incredible office space. He decided he didn't want to go work for a law firm. He just wanted to start one. And he was starting it around 1995, 1996. So he wanted it to be like an internet company. So when you got off the elevator, there was this platinum gray felt pool table was the first thing that you saw. There was a bar. No one in the law firm wore ties. They were all like dressed like trendy, certainly nice clothing, but first date dress code. Well, Perry DeLise's law firm, Wildeboer Rand Apps in Toronto, led the public offering for RIM, Research in Motion, which was BlackBerry. They landed that because they were a tech cool law firm. That story would be interesting and unique for all business journals, is how does somebody in a boring industry that no one wants to hear about create a culture that's kind of cool? That's story number 4. And then story number 5 is around leveraging technology, right? How are you leveraging the tech stack, utilizing AI, utilizing the technology tools to help more or less people get more done faster? That's an interesting story that people will talk about. Those 5 story angles, again, you can get multiple outlets multiple times, and you can get the same story written year after year in different outlets. So it's not about having more stories. It's about reaching out to the media and remembering every day they need a new story to cover. You're helping them by giving them a story.
So would you just call reporters? How'd you actually go?
Yeah, I actually wrote a book called Free PR to cover this. And in my book, Free PR, I give you the actual recipes to do it. We never call the news desk. We never call the city desk, and we never call the editor, and we never send out press releases. Here's why. Today, when you and I woke up and got ready to do this podcast, every journalist woke up and thought, what the heck am I going to write about today?
Yeah.
Every editor sat down at their desk with 400 press releases going, nope, 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 this sucks, nope, maybe, nope, yes, nope. Why do you want to deal with that person? I want to sit down with the writer who's sitting at their desk going, I have to do 4 stories today. What the fuck am I going to write about this morning? I go, hey, do you have 2 minutes? I think I have a good story for you. They go, yeah, I need a story. What do you got? Okay, I've got this story about this worst industry in the world to work for, law firms. They go, oh, I hate law firms. I know, right? Law firms suck. But I found a really good law firm that does this. We should talk about it. That's cool. Tell me more.
then you're in. Then it's
And you're
over.
in.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And that's how we landed every story angle.
Without social media.
And I'm talking about, like, I've personally been in the physical print edition, like the actual magazine, not the online e-zine, whatever. But I've been in actual Forbes, the actual Fortune, Entrepreneur, Success, American Airlines magazine, like the actual print editions, because I called the journalist and said, hey, I have a good story for you.
You just got to ask. I think that goes back to entrepreneur. We talked about this at the beginning, having emotional intelligence, going for it, taking a shot, not being scared.
And I'm not asking them to write about me. I'm saying, I think I have a good story for you. Would you like that story?
How about
That's
you?
the key.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's fantastic. Let me ask you this. So Vivid Vision, right? Really good book. I know a lot of lawyers listening to this have probably read it because it's been circulating quite a lot in the legal industry. So I read it and I made my Vivid Vision. A couple weeks later, my main lawyer, my key lawyer, resigned.
Awesome.
Like, yeah, but you know how it is. I was like to my wife, "Oh my God, this guy's falling. I'm screwed." No, like best blessing ever, because he said, "Dude, I'm not that guy."
Right.
At first, it was like rejection, but then it was like, "Oh, this is actually a good thing for him and my law firm." Could you talk about Vivid Vision for those who haven't read the book? Like what that condensed manifesto of where the bus is heading. How often you should show that to your people if you have one person or 100. Can you just talk about that if you're running a law firm?
So I'll explain the Vivid Vision concept, but I have an online training that everybody should go take a look at. It's called Invest in Your Leaders. So if you go to investinyourleaders.com, it has the 12 core skills that every manager and every leadership team person in a law firm needs to be really good at that no one's ever trained them in. So stuff around coaching, delegation, time management, handling projects, situational leadership, one-on-one coaching, interviewing. One of the modules is reverse engineering your vision or making your vivid vision come true. And it's how to roll it out. It's how to train people in it. It's how to align people with it. But the Vivid Vision document is a 4 or 5 page written description of what your company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future. You want to share that with suppliers, with customers, with your accountants, with your lawyers, with employees, leadership team, so everybody can see what your company looks like. And every section of your company is described. You might have a paragraph of what your customers are writing about you in the future, a paragraph of how your employees are showing up. You might have a paragraph about sales, one about marketing, one about operations, one about finance, one about your meeting rhythms and your leadership team dashboards. Basically, it's like you've traveled into the future and you hop out of the DeLorean time machine and you look around and you describe what you see. You don't know how it came true, but you can describe the future state in such a way that your team can figure out how to make it come true. So it's like building a home. The homeowner describes what the home will look like. The contractor creates the blueprints and the elevation plans to make the home come true. And then the workers look at the blueprints and they build the home without ever having to speak to the homeowner. So the power of that vivid vision is locking people in and aligning them so everyone can see what you can see.
Lately, this might sound kind of woo-woo. I don't know. I've been getting into manifestation quite a bit. This sounds to me like a manifestation of of the entity that we're building. And we're trying to get those true believers who will hopefully get a tattoo, right? Like just, those who put a sandwich board sign.
This isn't woo-woo. Quantum mechanics and quantum physics really works. I was actually speaking in Dubai at a group called Mind Valley University, spoke to 2,500 entrepreneurs, having breakfast one morning. And I was speaking about how the movie and the book, The Secret, were so fundamental in scaling 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We studied it. We gave copies of the book. We watched the movie multiple times. We brought in 2 of the speakers in the movie, The Secret, John DeMartini and John Ashraf, to come into the office to speak to our employees. And this woman that I was speaking with at breakfast, there were 3 of us having breakfast, the head of the speaking group, and then this one woman who was a speaker and me. And this other speaker started laughing. I'm like, it's not that funny. It was really big. And she starts laughing. She goes, Cameron, I was in the movie The Secret. I'm Marie Diamond. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I just didn't recognize her from 20 years before.
Crazy.
But I'm sitting with someone. Wild. Yeah. So now the key with manifestation is this. Thomas Edison said it best. Vision without execution is hallucination. Mm-hmm. So you can't just have this dream of what you're going to do and sit down and hope it's going to happen. You have to put the effort and energy behind it, right? So you can't just write the vivid vision and put it in a drawer. You need to share it with everyone. So I have a vivid vision for me as a guy that explains me, Cameron Herold, 27. It talks about me as a friend, a father, a lover, a confidant, a dad, what I do for fun, for vacations, use of substances, like talks about everything. It's a 5-page description of me. And then my wife and I wrote one for our marriage, describes us as friends, as confidants, as
That's so cool,
travelers.
man.
And we share all of these with the world because the more that we're focused on where we're going, the more people can help us make that come true.
Well, that's wonderful, man. I encourage everyone, read the book, write down your vivid vision, put it down. And you know what I just did? I'm really getting into manifestation. I never have been, but I am. So Cameron, what I did, I think I stole this from Jim Carrey. What I did was I wrote a check to myself for an obscene amount, and I carry it with me because I know the feeling of that check. I know the feeling of putting that pen on the paper. Yep. That's putting this into reality, putting your vivid vision. You want 20 employees in 3 years, you're put this down and get aligned on that frequency. For anyone listening, it may sound this is kind of crazy. I don't think it is. And it sounds like you don't either. This is true manifesting. But you got to kick ass. You got to roll up your sleeves and work your butt off. But, saying affirmations, like until you actually believe it, I'm trying to manifest that check in my pocket. And I think, the way you talk to yourself, Cameron, so many of us entrepreneurs are like, I can't do it. I'm stumbling. I'm getting punched in the face. And we get I get in my own way all the time, constantly.
Yeah, it's why you need to be involved with a coach or a mastermind community, because one of the core things an entrepreneur has to do is protect their confidence. Yeah. It's why their COO should be in the COO Alliance. So anybody running a firm of 2 million or greater in revenue, get your second in command to join me and all these other hundreds of COOs, because it's a place for the COO or whoever your second in command is to grow their skills, their confidence, and their connections. If you're not constantly working on your connections and your confidence, the world and the market will beat you down. You said something that I just want to be very careful with. Don't ever set the number of employees as a goal for your company. Let me explain why.
Yeah.
WhatsApp sold for $1.8 billion. They only had 55 employees. Trust me, they weren't trying to add employees in their company. They were trying to build a better company towards an exit. When I first started coaching Jason Hennessy and Scott Schrum, Jason had a goal with number of employees. And I stopped him and I said, what if you could triple the size of your company with less people? He goes, oh, that'd be amazing. I'm like, then why do you have headcount as a goal? What you want to look at is optimization of work, automation of work, saying no to the busy work, saying no to the low margin work, and now clearly looking to automate and leverage AI to actually get more done with less people faster. So don't set number of employees as a goal.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's a fine point. I appreciate that. That's good. Jason Hennessy was on this show, and he's a savvy guy. I think the thing about him, he just takes action.
He's very coachable. I've coached Jason and Scott Schrum, his COO, for 3 years. Scott's been a COO Alliance member for 3 years. Jason not only takes action, he's very coachable.
You have to be.
He learns. He shows up. He's the classic example of if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. He constantly wants to put himself around other really, really smart people to elevate his game because he's brilliant. He's really smart.
No, 100%.
His COO, Scott, has actually won on Jeopardy. We're talking next level smart, right? And Scott shows up as the dumb guy at the COO Alliance wanting to continue to learn. That's why they're so successful.
I love it. Never forever learner. You have to be. You have to get into. I agree with you. You can accelerate your growth and avoid these failures that we talked about before. Getting into a mastermind, getting a coach. I'm all about that. I think the attorney listening has got to get coaching. Has got to be leveling up constantly. This dovetails into my next question about mindset. Because you coach a lot of high level entrepreneurs. What do the best of the best that you coach have in common? What are their mindsets? What do they do well? What are some common things you see amongst them?
Well, one is that they tend to work on the critical few things versus the important many. So they have the ability to focus on the high leverage activities that will drive revenue per employee, margin per employee, will move that flywheel forward. So that's number one, the ability to focus. I think number two is that they've learned that the school system kind of emotionally set us up for failure. The school system told us to memorize everything and be the smartest person in the room. What they realized, two of my friends, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, wrote a book called Who Not How.
Yeah, great book.
The smartest entrepreneurs realize they don't have to know how to do it anymore. They have to know the right people who can do that for them. I actually learned that in university, and I'll kind of go full caveat on this. I cheated in my accounting course, managerial accounting, because I didn't have time. I didn't want to learn it. I was running a business. I was president of a fraternity. I was on the university ski team. Doing all these assignments was crazy to me. So I hired a guy to do every weekly assignment for me. I paid him in beer every single week to do that. And then I was getting ready to write the final. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to fail this. I don't know this content. He goes, what did you do? I said, I paid somebody for 13 weeks to write my accounting assignments. He goes, what did you learn from doing that? I'm like, I don't know, how to hire somebody. He goes, yes, you want to be an entrepreneur. You learn how to hire an accountant. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Like, no one's ever asked for my university transcript since anyway. So my big lesson was I had to know a smart person who could do accounting for me. I didn't have to be able to do it myself. So I think that's number 2. And then I guess number 3 is that people remember that the successful entrepreneurs, they remember that they don't have to be the one doing all this work. They have to really start to surround themselves with smart people and delegate everything except genius. The CEO is to be the chief energizing officer. So you have to bring that positive energy, because that momentum creates momentum. And if you're working on stuff that drains you of energy, or that you're not good at, or that you find really hard, then you're bringing that hard negative energy into the organization. So I'd say that's number 3.
They pick up on that. They know that Chris Cameron is in a bad mood today. It's going to bring them down. They're not going to want to perform. They're not going to be a culture carrier, probably a culture killer if you keep on with that bad attitude. So yeah, you got to be sensitive to how you're coming into the office, right?
And by the way, anybody who's watching this podcast right now, I'm sitting in a very random, weird Airbnb with some strange backgrounds. This is not my house. My wife and I have been global nomads for 3.5 years. We've been traveling full time over 58 countries. So I'm just sitting in a random Airbnb right now. This is not my home.
Well, I was going to ask you about the Nomadic Lifestyle, but that's definitely a cool clock you got behind you. It's not the worst aesthetic, I'll tell you. Can I ask you about, all right, we've identified we have some people on the bus that are not going to help us. We're not going to help them get to where everyone's here trying to get to. How do you go about, I know I've heard you talk before about, would I ask yourself, would I enthusiastically rehire this person if I could do it over again?
Yeah.
We talk about just being honest with yourself and just letting go and setting people free to open up their future. What law firms need to do?
I had dinner last night with a mentor of mine from 25 years ago. And one of the lessons that Rob taught me 25 years ago, it's funny, the student has now become the mentor. I now mentor Rob, and he mentored me 25 years ago. It's really weird. So he told me though something years ago: when you have doubt, you have no doubt. So when your gut's telling you this is the wrong person, you got to make the cut, right? And you have to do that person a favor and get them out of the organization and let them go somewhere else where they're going to be happier, they're going to be inspired. But if you keep showing up, excluding them from meetings, showing them all the areas they're screwing up, bringing negative energy to every conversation with them, pointing out all their points of failure, you're just ruining a human being's life. So set them free, let them go somewhere else. Even if they end up working at the post office, they're going to be happier than working for you.
Can I ask you a question? How do you fall on that? I'm sure you weren't. You weren't really doing all the firing. You're in a different level of the organization. But for those who are having to let people go, do you espouse a quick, sorry, Cameron, letting you go today, or a more compassionate, here's why, Cameron, here's why?
Yeah. Okay. So I've always been able to fire people. I remember firing my first person when I was 20 years old, and I got called by a big labor lawyer, which was really funny because I just quoted the law back to him because I just finished studying employment law that year. No, I fire my direct reports, and I get my direct reports to fire their direct reports. So if I'm firing somebody, though, basically what I say is this: it's one of two things. It's either A, I'm sorry, it's just not working out. It's just not a core values fit anymore. Here's your termination pay. Here's your letter, whatever, your separation letter. And you just, that's it. I'm sorry it's not working out. It's just not a cultural fit anymore. Or I'm sorry it's not working out. The results aren't just what we need anymore. And then here it is. If they start arguing or debating, I just go right back to what I said. I'm sorry it's not working out. It's just not a cultural fit anymore. Yeah. Remember when we were like 21 years old and we went to the bar and the bouncer's like, Chris, you can't come in. You're wearing running shoes. You're like, yeah, but my friends are inside. Sorry, you can't come in. You're wearing running shoes. Yeah, but my girlfriend's inside. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you can't come in. You're wearing running shoes. They just kept saying the same thing. They didn't engage with all of our arguments. So when you're firing somebody, it's just calmly saying, I'm sorry, it's just not working out. It's not a core values fit anymore. They know why. They've already been told 17 times over the last 3 months. But it's just not getting sucked into the discussion or debate with them anymore. And it's doing it in a way and at a time of day that allows them to exit in a clean way. So I usually try to do it towards the end of the day where they can quickly grab their stuff and leave, or where they can come in, the next morning early or at the end of the day, and we can help them pack their stuff up and leave.
That's wonderful. So we've come full circle. We brought them onto the bus because we saw core values fit, and now we see there is not a core values fit. So we're staying consistent. This sort of circular, consistency. Let's go to a happier topic. You have some A players on the bus, and they're just rushing it. We just talked about the volleyball 2 versus 5 dynamic.
Totally.
When you have A players, what do you need to do?
And a true A player is somebody, for the money that you're paying, is getting the results that you expect, and they obsess and live about the core values and your vivid vision. That's an A player. So when you have those people, you need to handcuff them to your company for at least 5 years. Now, you can't have a golden handcuff program because every person is satisfied differently from every other person, right? So you need to understand that person and how do I satisfy them? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I have 200 employees and I've got 15 of them that are my, God forbid they ever quit, my true A players. For some, they want more of a results only work environment. Some, they want more flex time. Some, they want overtime. Some, they want more responsibility. Some want less responsibility. Some want more vacation time. Some want more visibility with the board of directors or board of advisors. Some want more visibility with the press, or they want to be a speaker on behalf of the company. Some would like to work on their executive MBA program while they're still with you. Some want more autonomy in their day-to-day. Some want you to run or buy a company and let them run it. Some want you to spin off a division. You need to figure out what it is. Some want equity. Some want phantom stock. Some want profit sharing. You need to truly understand all of that. What's interesting around 1-800-GOT-JUNK was I was very different from the other 5 members of the leadership team. What I wanted was to build a brand that was so hyper successful, that was a world-class admired brand, that everyone knew that I was a part of building it. So I wanted to do speaking on behalf of the company. I wanted to do media interviews. I wanted to be the face along with Brian, of the company. No one can name the other 5 members of the leadership team. Even in Brian's first book, WTF, or Willing to Fail, I was the only member of the leadership team he haven't even mentioned. He mentioned me like 9 times throughout the book. It was embarrassing. But no one else even got mentioned, which was kind of sad. But what they wanted was to do a job, to get paid, to have profit sharing. Well, what I recognized was my brand equity was going to come off of everyone knowing that I'd built the brand. So the way Brian handcuffed me to the company was I was able to build that. Right? That's why I was able to stay.
So it sounds like to me identifies sort of their language, right? And what resonates with them on a deep primal level, so they never want to go on to a different bus and a different law firm.
My assistant's been with me for 9 years right now, Meredith. My head of projects and IT has been with me for 7 years right now. It's just truly sitting down and understanding what floats their boat, and then making sure that you're kind of the ladder to the roof.
Right. That's wonderful.
Then pull away the ladder so they can't get down.
All right, wrapping up this, I'm curious. So you're now sort of a nomad. You travel a lot. I see on Instagram you're always somewhere, Australia. Very exciting locales. What lessons have you learned that you didn't learn in business? What are some life lessons you've learned seeing all these countries?
Well, one is that none of this matters, right? At the end of the day, in fact, I got a tattoo last year in Italy, and it's in Hindi, but it's the Ram Dass quote, walking each other home. And it's just to remind me that none of this really matters. We are just walking each other home. We're just here with each other on our journey, and to care about each other's journeys and care about each other, because this is just what we're doing to make money. Right. What really matters is time with our friends, with ourselves, with our spouse, with our hobbies, with our community. So that's one. Number 2 is there's just some really cool stuff to see out there because we're traveling. And I mean traveling. Like, we've been in about 60 countries in the last 3 years and 9 months, sold our home in Canada, sold our home in the US, sold our cars, sold our furniture. Everything's gone. We've been full nomads. I think we've been in 120 Airbnbs.
Wow.
In the last 3.5 years. But every day I'm taking pictures. Every day I'm at a new coffee shop or a new yoga studio or a new gym or in a new neighborhood. Even where I'm staying right now in Vancouver, where I used to live for 25 years, I'm here for 10 days. I'm staying in a neighborhood I've never lived in. And I know where it was, but I'm walking to the beach and I'm exploring new coffee shops that I never went to because it was 10 minutes away from where I used to live. I'm aware of wonder right now, which I think is really beautiful. And I guess the last is that, you can kind of explore yourself with these ideas of bucket lists. So my wife and I each wrote about 120 things that we wanted to do or achieve or try or experience or explore around the world. And we're crossing off those bucket list items. So this July, as an example, we're heading to Tonga, this random country near Fiji, when we're going to go swimming with humpback whales and blue whales. Just super random. You know, we just went paragliding 2 weeks ago in Cape Town. So we're really crossing off all these bucket list ideas of just being able to go explore.
That's so cool, man. Because isn't that the whole point of this, being an entrepreneur, is to have freedom, right? Like just freedom.
Yeah, we only start our law firm or our company for one of three reasons. Number one is to have that feeling of accomplishment, like I did it, right?
Yeah.
And for many students who struggled in the school system, it's the only time we've ever really got that praise, is because we finally prove that we've done it. I remember going back to my 25th high school reunion, where I was always told I was going to fail, I wasn't successful, I wasn't going to do well, pay attention, you're not trying hard enough. And I looked around and realized, and I did the math in my head, that if I added up every teacher and professor I'd ever had over 18 years and added up their approximate annual compensation, I made more money in profit in that 1 year than all of my 18 years of teachers and professors combined. And I was like, I did it. I had that flag in the ground. Number two is to have money, right? To create a vehicle and a flywheel to give us money. But at some point, you know, you have enough money. You know, somebody was saying, oh, Elon Musk is only doing this job with the government to make more money. If you do the math, if he was paid $500,000 a day, every single day, so 365 days a year, paid $500,000 a day for the last 2,025 years, like since Jesus was born, if Elon is paid $500,000 a day, he still has more money than that. That's how much $360 billion is. He's not doing this to make money anymore. He's doing this because it feels good to him. It's for fun. It's a game. So you do it to make money, but to a point. And then number three is to give yourself the free time and the life to do whatever you want. I was lucky enough that my dad taught me that being an entrepreneur was about having the free time. It was about doing what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted, not reporting to somebody else. And the money would come later. But I think often entrepreneurs get stuck in this trap that they forget to get off that flywheel. They forget to enjoy what they're building. And I just think that they're missing the point.
Cameron, man, this has been a really interesting conversation. I've talked to a lot of people on this podcast. This has really been a great one. I appreciate you very much for the wisdom. It's very inspiring.
Thank you, sincerely.
No, seriously. Thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you? Obviously, you're, not hard to find. You're all over social. You're on the internet. But like, how can people get in touch with you if they're serious about wanting to level up?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, on social, Instagram is where I share everything and communicate mostly. But if you go to CameronHerold.com, and it's HEROLD, so CameronHerold.com, that has links to my books, links to my Second in Command podcast, the COO Alliance, my investor and leaders training. It has all there. It's all set up. My website's set up like a link tree. So it's very easy to find everything and connect with me.
Thank you so much for the wisdom. Really appreciate you today, Cameron.
Of course. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Answering Legal YouTube channel.